Mars, the red planet. Like all the planets surrounding Earth in the solar system, it's a wasteland free of life. Thanks to its relative closeness to the Sun and its lack of volatile weather like Venus, it's seen as a possible site for human colonization. But how would humanity transform a red planet of dust and rock into a thriving human colony? It won't happen overnight, but the foundations are being set as we speak. Here's how Mars could become a human colony if everything went right, year by year. Year 1. This has happened already, as in 2016 the eccentric billionaire Elon Musk, who had long been fascinated by the idea of colonizing another planet, took his first concrete step toward it. He announced the first designs of his rocket that would deliver colonists and supplies to Mars. He called it Starship, and his teams immediately began working on the technology that would make it possible. In that same year, the Russian aeronautical company Roscosmos successfully sent a probe into the orbit of Mars. Humanity was on its way. Year 3. Humanity was still a long way from Mars, and there were many obstacles in the way. For one thing, the surface of Mars was deeply inhospitable to human life. While humans could survive it in spacesuits, the journey would be long and challenging, and that would only be suitable for a short visit, not colonizing the red planet. So in 2018, NASA took the next logical step. They sent a robot there instead. The NASA InSight lander was the latest robotic probe on the planet, but this one had a special purpose. It would place a seismometer on the planet to map it more effectively, both inside and out, and get a picture of its internal heat transfer. To send humans to Mars, we need to understand Mars a lot better than we do now. But first, we need to get the technology right. Year 4. SpaceX has been spending the years since Starship was announced making plans and building ships. Now in 2019, it set the debut of the first proof of concept for its fleet of ships, the Star Hopper. This prototype for the test vehicle makes its first test hops, simulating the kind of jumps it'll need to make to get to Mars in a controlled environment. It aces every one, and SpaceX is soon building full-scale prototypes to send the first crews to Mars. Some government officials quibble. Shouldn't space travel be in the public's hands and not a private company? But barring any large-scale investment, it seems that any future space exploration will be led by Elon Musk and his company. And only a few years later, some big steps would be taken. Year 6. 2021 was a big year for space exploration. The United Arab Emirates successfully sent a probe into orbit around Mars. NASA successfully landed their Perseverance rover on Mars to collect samples, alongside a small drone helicopter, as SpaceX successfully completed a high-altitude test flight and landing of the latest Starship prototype. NASA officially selected the company to build the first human lunar lander module, much to the anger of Musk's chief competitor, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who has his own space program, Blue Origin. Later that year, China would successfully land its own lander and rover on the red planet. The race to Mars was on, but how long would it take to get there? Year 11. As we head into the future, more countries will join the race. Japan and India, both of which have fast-growing space programs, will likely get closer to the red planet. India is set to launch its Mangalyaan 2 orbiter to collect data in orbit, while Japan will send its Martian Moons Explorer to capture samples from the moon of Phobos and return to Earth with them over a 4-year mission. But no one in the race is catching SpaceX, as the Starship prototype is now complete and operating crewed test flights. As the first orbital flight with a crew is a success, Musk and his team get ready for an even bigger leap. However, one thing stands in their way: the ideal alignment of Earth with Mars. It only happens once every 2 years, so timing is key. Because if Mars colonization is going to happen, they need to get everything right. Year 13. SpaceX is ready to show off again, this time with a flight to the moon. The #Dear Moon mission will take off from Earth and take its pilot and 8 carefully selected crew members on an orbit around the moon for the ultimate view. At the same time, an uncrewed SpaceX ship will be getting ready to land on the lunar South Pole, the most significant landing for the company yet. But the most significant development is happening elsewhere, as the main structure of the Lunar Gateway is completed. This small space station, a collaboration between American, European, Canadian, and Japanese space programs, will orbit the moon and be a key way station for larger space missions in the future. But the biggest test is yet to come. Year 15. The moment is here. Can SpaceX make the trip to Mars? The ship has been tested, but this is going to be its longest trip yet, and so the first mission to Mars will be unmanned. These 2 cargo starships will head to Mars, both loaded with a miniature nuclear power reactor, as well as an atmospheric propellant plant to create oxygen and methane from the Martian environment, essential for sustaining both human and plant life on the red planet. And as this is going on, everyone is busy. This is around when NASA will be retrieving samples from Mars to transport back to Earth. And because SpaceX isn't busy enough, this is the year that they plan to return humans to the moon to search for frozen water in its polar region. Things are going to start moving faster from here on out. Year 17. Now that the lunar starship has been tested successfully, several more are coming, and they're going to be staying for a while. The goal of this mission will be to establish the first human base on the moon, the Artemis Base Camp, which will allow for the astronauts to stay for longer periods and do research on site. While there are no plans to create permanent living quarters on the moon, it's not as promising as Mars for those purposes. Crews will be rotating in and out frequently. And while this work is going on, the results from the ground tests on Mars will come back, and that will allow the SpaceX team to make their final pick for the location of what will become Mars Base Alpha, the very first human outpost on Mars. It's almost moving time. Year 19. Mars is about to get crowded, but there still aren't any humans in the latest arrivals. 2 unmanned starships arrive on the future site of Mars Base Alpha and roll out a large fleet of rovers, solar panels, and mining robots that will lay the foundation of the base. It'll be one of the biggest construction projects in human history, and it'll take place over 100 million miles away from the closest human. This project will take more than a year to complete, but while that's going on, the world will be busy elsewhere, because humans are about to become an interplanetary species. Year 21. The robots are working away as landing fields are cleared and the base continues to be prepped. But while these tireless workers are at their jobs, the moon is about to become a lot more crowded. Artemis Base Camp was completed not long ago. After several short-term missions for construction and testing, it's ready to welcome its first full-time residents. Much like the massive International Space Station, this base will allow residents to engage in longer-term study of the moon and the effects of life in space on humans, because sooner rather than later, it's going to be very relevant. The countdown is over. It's time for liftoff. Year 23. It took a long time to get here, and now the whole world is watching. SpaceX has been searching for the right candidates for years, and now 24 lucky individuals have been chosen. They're about to become the crew members on the first manned mission to Mars. They'll be divided into 2 groups of 12 and sent on a pair of starships accompanied by cargo ships. While this is primarily a SpaceX operation, it's backed up by NASA and will be watched closely by governments around the globe. The cargo ships are critically important to this mission because they'll be carrying an ISRU system. This machine will be used to collect, process, store, and use materials found on Mars to replace construction supplies and propellants that would otherwise need to be taken from Earth, saving a massive amount of cargo space. Solar panels are also being set up around the planet by robots, providing much of the power of Mars Base Alpha. SpaceX also deploys its Starlink satellites around Mars, guaranteeing communication and GPS abilities on the new horizon. After all, no one wants to get lost on a new planet. Will it work? That's the question everyone wants to find out. But it won't take long to find out. While SpaceX estimates that the timeline of the trip to Mars will be significantly shorter than the original NASA voyages, it's still a several months-long trip. The 24 astronauts are in for a long, stressful voyage. But before the end of 2031, the starships touch down on Mars successfully. The whole world watches, the same way they did in 1969. As someone steps out of the door, it's one small step for man, or woman, and one giant step for mankind, as the first human sets foot on Mars. We made it. Now what? Year 25. Now, the hard work begins. The 24 residents of Mars Base Alpha are living in a self-contained environment, in an artificial atmosphere, and only travel outside the base for research missions under carefully controlled circumstances in spacesuits that can withstand the brutal conditions on the outside. It's hard, lonely, and a dangerous life, but they've all signed on for the greater good, science. And one project in particular will make for a massive leap forward for life on the planet. The robots have been scouting for the presence of frozen water on the planet for years, and once the best location has been determined, it'll be mined and processed into drinkable water. After extensive chemical analysis, of course, no one knows what's buried down there in the ice. And at the same time, the construction robots are still hard at work, building more landing and launch pads for future starships to arrive. Because company's coming. Year 27. The second crew arrives on Mars, this time containing around 30 astronauts and specialized workers. With a growing population means growing needs. The priority of this mission will be to enhance the food production of the planet. The centerpiece will be a hydroponic greenhouse producing fresh vegetables from the locally sourced water and supplementing the diet of packaged astronaut food. This will be essential to promoting the health of the astronauts, key to long-term survival on Mars. The footprint of Mars Base Alpha is growing all the time, now featuring a field station for research and fast-growing infrastructure. It's such a success that other people are going to want to get in on it. Year 29. Colonizing Mars is a massive investment, and other countries are going to want to join NASA and SpaceX on the Red Planet. So instead of financing their own colonial missions and having to debate land rights with the first arrivals, they simply decide to buy their way in. This is around the time that allied space programs like those in Europe, Canada, and Japan will realize Mars Base Alpha is a success, and they'll cut their own deals to buy in. Soon, ships will be coming from around the world, and Mars Base Alpha will start to look a lot like a rainbow coalition of science. But now that humans are on Mars, there's one more challenge: getting them back to Earth. Year 31. It's time for the first return mission back to Earth. Almost as tense as an endeavor as the first arrival, if less historic. It's another nerve-wracking few months, but this mission ends in success as well, and the returning scientists and crew workers are found to be in good health. But don't worry about Mars Base Alpha getting lonely. A new starship with the largest crew yet will be arriving to restock it with scientists, workers, and for the first time residents who will be staying there full-time. The base has proven itself. Now the entire world knows it can sustain life, and it'll need a larger crew to build upon the success. It's now functioning as a full-fledged international research base, with crews rotating in and out roughly every 2 years. It's evidence that cooperation is the future of space exploration, but competition is coming. Year 33. Now that the US and its partners have done the hard work, it's proven that Mars can sustain human life under the right circumstances, so it's no surprise that China has been hard at work. And the odds are it'll have its own base along with its international partners up and running by now. But don't worry about shootouts on the surface of Mars. It's likely China will keep to itself, keeping its base far away from the US-aligned one and concentrating on its own research. And while the crew at Mars Base Alpha keeps growing, so does its capabilities. The ISRU system has been tirelessly working to analyze components of the red planet and synthesize what it can out of them. Mars is now producing its own air, fuel, water, and construction materials from locally synthesized compounds. Massive 3D printers cut down on the time it takes to create large construction components, and much of the hard work at the station is now automated. The population of the station is approaching 200, and SpaceX continues to bring in heavy-duty construction equipment for ongoing projects. Things are stable, things are good, and things are about to take a big leap forward. Year 35. 5 years later, Mars looks a lot different than it did when the project began. It looks less like a desolate waste station, more like a thriving society. The small organic garden now looks more like a massive greenhouse, capable of supplying large amounts of produce to a growing population. For those astronauts who really don't want to go vegan, there's good news. A fish farm has been established to provide much-needed protein, and multiple species of fish and seafood are raised on-site in environmentally shielded tanks. As for meat, they're not going to be raising any chickens, pigs, or cows on Mars. They would consume way too many resources and risk contamination. But a cultured meat farm has been established to create small amounts of animal tissue for those who really want their burgers. And the need for burgers is only going to grow from here. The settlement on Mars started with astronauts and scientists living a hard-scrabble existence trying to build a colony on the red planet. Then came the colonists, committed to living there long-term and helping to cultivate the environment. But now Mars is looking good, and the wait list is longer than ever. Not only are there several hundred human colonists living there along with well-paid short-term workers, but the planet is increasingly welcoming wealthy tourists who want to taste the ultimate adventure. So, where's the planet keeping all these people? The Mars base has been expanded, with massive underground areas housing the large population. But as for the high rollers, it's likely that Mars has luxury housing at this point, as well as possibly a high-end hotel created by one of the many investors in Elon Musk's grand experiment. But there's one type of resident that poses a much thornier question. When will Mars welcome the first children? It might have already. After all, many people who have families have committed to an extended stay on Mars. After exhaustingly testing the effect of space travel on children, NASA and SpaceX will decide whether or not to allow pregnant colonists to travel to Mars. If the okay is given, some adaptations will need to be made, including the very first school on Mars. As for children born on Mars, it's a much trickier question. The gravity and environment on Mars are very different from Earth. And while adults with fully formed bodies can adjust to it and thrive long-term, it's not clear if the same would go for an infant born there. Even if they could thrive on Mars, the trip back to Earth and adjusting to life on it could be very hazardous. So the odds are the authorities are doing their best to discourage any babies from being born on Mars. And new frontiers are being discovered all the time. With a solid base on Mars, a new journey beckons. Humanity landing on the moon in 1969 was an earth-shaking event. But how about landing on a moon from another planet? It's a short hop to Phobos and Deimos, which haven't been largely explored yet and may make for potential future sites for space bases and way stations for hops beyond Mars. Until now, the journeys beyond Mars were impossible due to the length of the voyage, but now it's possible to start on Earth, head to Mars, and head from there to the great beyond. At the same time, the production on Mars is stepping up so intensely that the planet's produced resources may soon be exported back to Earth. That's one solution for reducing resource consumption on Earth. And thrill-seeking visitors to Mars will be conquering their own frontiers. While the focus on Mars has been on developing it and researching its resources and history, there's one feature on it that likely attracts the attention of more visitors. It's called Olympus Mons, and it's the final frontier for mountaineers, even taller than Everest. It's the tallest mountain ever found in this solar system. It's a long and treacherous trek, but that just means someone's going to want to be the first to conquer it. And for that lucky, rich Earth tourist who conquers the mountain and lives to tell the tale, you can bet they'll be famous worldwide on more than one world. And things will just keep roaring forward. Year 40. Mars is looking more and more like a human city with every passing day. The entire surface has now been explored and mapped by humans, and the area around Mars Base Alpha is now a small spaceport capable of handling the heavy traffic coming back and forth. Bigger starships have been developed, carrying hundreds of passengers at a time. These are not only bringing more humans to Mars, but heavier and more specialized equipment. That includes parts for the first nuclear reactor on Mars, something that will massively increase the base's energy production and help keep up with demand. And this isn't a one-man job. Once it became clear that SpaceX's investment in the planet was a success, the odds are Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin and Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic would have invested heavily in the planet as well. They might be working on their own bases and luxury hotels for tourists, meaning that Mars is on the verge of its first advertising war. And that's not the only way the red planet is starting to look like Earth. The planet's now dotted with bases, mining depots, and research facilities along its rocky surfaces, with SpaceX and NASA expanding to multiple points of interest. Between the official sites and the many tourist sites that are developing, people are going to need ways to get from one place to another. Mars has likely a road system established, as well as public transportation. Elon Musk's interest in underground train systems like the Hyperloop means that the mining droids have been busy carving a vast Martian tunnel network, supplemented by buses and short-distance cars above ground. The population of Mars is now close to 2,000 full-time colonists, with more arriving all the time from multiple companies and countries. In only a few short years, the nuclear reactor is up and running, and as the year 2050 is rung in on Mars, the future is looking brighter than ever. But the growing population of Mars will mean some hard questions are coming. Year 45. With the growing population of civilians on Mars, the planet's starting to look less like a base and more like a city. Many of the colonists work in factories on the planet, helping to construct assets like solar panels and help perform the precise hands-on work the robots can't. And with a combo of locals and tourists roaming the planet, it's likely some people will get up to things they shouldn't, which is why Mars Base Alpha soon establishes its own police force, taking over from the SpaceX security team. The surface of Mars is now likely dotted with small bases from other countries, which use them for research and production, but no other country has put in the decades-long investment to creating what's essentially a colony. And now SpaceX is looking further. The company's been working on creating new, better, faster spaceships this whole time, and many are now produced and based on Mars. One of them will be used in the first mission from Mars, heading into the treacherous realm of the asteroid belt, with the goal of landing on the dwarf planet Ceres. Made up of frozen water and rich with minerals, it's seen as a possible resource center for Mars. And while the first manned mission is likely to be brief, it's seen as a critical way station for longer journeys into the solar system. But back home, trouble may be brewing. Life on Mars is becoming less of a sacrifice for the future of humanity and more of a desirable adventure. Many of the amenities on Earth are becoming available on the red planet, and it's bringing more and more people all the time. By 2053, the population is approaching 4,000, and Mars Base Alpha is getting crowded. New bases are being built, more countries are establishing their own bases, and they soon start developing their own subcultures. It becomes increasingly important to protect the surface of Mars, with more and more of it being dotted with human life. A stray meteor strike from the asteroid belt could mean disaster. Defense systems are equipped with the ability to track and shoot down flying objects if needed. But the biggest problem will be Mars's growing population, year 50 and beyond. The population growth is unlikely to slow down, and that means that making decisions for a large group is likely to get harder. Until now, the odds are policy was largely determined by SpaceX administrators and governments on Earth. But with the population of thousands, you'll have countless small issues every day. This means that eventually Mars Base Alpha and other bases as they grow will have to establish their own governments. These are likely to resemble small city governments at first, with a legislative council, an executive, and a judicial system to handle both criminal and civil disputes. It'll look a lot like Earth, just on Mars, and will answer to higher government authorities if needed. And as Mars grows, so does big business. The first businesses to establish themselves on Mars will be, not surprisingly, the ones who already have investments. But with a permanent audience of thousands waiting for them, don't be surprised if soon the Mars bases get some familiar occupants. Anyone up for a McMars burger? How about a Red Planet Frappuccino? Tourism will still mostly be for the rich, but as the process becomes increasingly streamlined, it'll get cheaper and cheaper, just like air travel did decades ago. And soon, the planet may not be looking so red anymore. One of the next big forays into the Martian exploration will be the process of terraforming, which will be started by artificially releasing super greenhouse gases in the Martian atmosphere and seeding the air. Will it work? A massive stumbling block is the lack of an electromagnetic field. This would make any attempt at terraforming Mars vulnerable to solar radiation, so the colonists are likely to stick with what works, a large domed environment suitable for growth. New outposts will be established on the moons, spaceships will get faster and faster, and Mars will soon be covered with massive domes housing cities of people. Its food and fertilizer output increases so much it becomes the main supplier to other outposts in the solar system, as it lies much closer to them compared to the Earth. And now, something else is growing too. Despite many concerns about the health of the children, the odds are the first children will have been born on Mars by now, either as a planned experiment or more likely through a happy accident. Hey, those Martian nights get cold. But planned or not, this will be the biggest experiment yet in the Martian colony, because these children will be the first Martian natives growing up in the red planet's gravity and atmosphere. It's possible they'll live their whole lives on Mars, but if they plan on returning to Earth, that'll be a difficult process, and scientists are hard at work designing exoskeletons that might help them adjust to Earth's gravity. Eventually, Mars's questions will start looking a lot more like Earth's. Who's going to be the first country to build the first prison on Mars? Odds are a jail will be built fairly quickly for small-time criminals, but there's a long history of countries shipping their criminals to faraway colonies like Australia. Could Mars be next? As the population of Mars grows from the thousands to the tens of thousands and beyond, and they become increasingly self-sufficient, many of the resident Martian humans might start chafing under the leadership of Earth's countries. Some may even say it's time to take their fate into their own hands. Will the governments be willing to give them more autonomy? Will the companies that founded Mars Base Alpha and beyond support their call for independence? Does anyone know if there's a river on Mars to dump some tea? If you're looking for some more unexpected looks into the future, check out What If the Earth Stopped Spinning Minute by Minute, or watch The Real Problem with Living on Mars for a look at what might hold us back.